y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Journals right here on Black Mass Paranormal. So I'm still out here in the woods following down this lead about a dogman, and I came across what looked to be an old moonshine still site. Not the still wasn't there, but the way that it was carved out, it pretty much looked like somebody at one point had been running some shine there. Now, in East Tennessee, this isn't a big deal. You know, I mean, it's pretty common, especially around the mountains. You know, that's the part of our culture. And just, it was the way of life for a lot of people. And it reminded me of a old story that a guy named JD used to talk about. Now, JD was a moonshiner, and he was a great moonshiner. His famous thing was like this apple rye type moonshine. And he used to talk to me about these creatures that were called the Yunwi Tsunsdi, or Yunwi Tsunstiga. Now, you have probably heard of these creatures. They, throughout any type of Native American culture, they all talk about them. Whether it be the Manigishi, or they call them the goblins, or sometimes fairies. From the moonshiners side of this, they were these little creatures that would absolutely cause havoc on the still site. Now, a lot of the moonshiners would state that they would blame all of their problems on these little creatures that were living out in the mountains. So I did a little bit of research, and I kind of wanted to explain their origin. So the Cherokee Indians, and I'm solely explaining this from the Cherokee side. I totally understand that there could be different variations, but I'm just relaying the messages from JD that were told to me and how this story came about. Now, I'm not 100% sure about these things. I know that there's a lot of stuff going around on YouTube talking about these types of creatures, but I might go do an investigation looking for them. But anyway, for the Paranormal Journals purposes, I just kind of wanted to at least introduce these characters, and so you all have an understanding of what I'm talking about. So obviously in the Appalachian Mountains, moonshine was a huge part of day-to-day life for a lot of people. A lot of people made moonshine solely so they could survive through the winter. In general, they would try not to have to run shine during the wintertime because a lack of cover from ahead. And you could actually see the stills from a distance. Now, JD swore up and down that he, at one point in his moonshining career, had a run-in with these things. And he said that they would cause all kinds of havoc on the moonshine still. They would destroy his mash. They would cause like leaks in the still itself. They would take parts of the still and they would run off in the woods. He said he would find like elbows, and he said at one point he found his cap about like 300 yards out in the middle of the woods, and he swore up and down that it was these Yunwi Tsunsdi that were causing him all of these problems. So in Cherokee folklore, these creatures initially had a huge problem with the local birds. They were essentially terrified of these birds because they would swoop in and kill a lot of the Yunwi Tsunsdi. They were terrified mainly of geese. The geese would come in and they would cause the majority of the damage. Until one day, a group of Cherokee boys came in and they saw what was happening to the little people of the woods. And they went up and they talked to them and they said, well, you all aren't really strong enough to carry big weapons, but what you could do is use sticks as clubs in order to fight off of these birds. So the Yunwi Tsunsdi took their advice and they actually kind of started hunting these birds. Now, when the birds came in, they would all swarm them and they would attack them and essentially kill them with their sticks. Now, when the geese would come in, it was a little bit of a bigger problem. The geese were a little bit too big for them to be able to actually hit them in the head because their necks were so long. So a lot of the population was supposedly wiped out by geese. And that's when the Yunwi Tsunsdi fled to the mountains in order to get more ground cover. And they would live in areas kind of like where I'm sitting right here. As you can see, you have a lot of small crevices, big rock face, gives you really good shelter from the surrounding birds and whatnot. Now, JD was just absolutely dead certain that these things were in the mountains and that they did not like moonshiners, because the moonshiners would come in and they would dam up the creeks, they would dam up the water sources for the Yunwi, and they would cause the little people all sorts of different problems. JD claims that at one night while he was running the shine, that he got attacked by a group of these things. He said that they came in and they beat the living dog shit out of his shins because they were so small and they just had these tiny sticks that they couldn't do a whole lot of damage to him as, a mountain man. He's out there running moonshine, so he's going to be a little bit of a tough character. But he said that these things attacked him and they just scarred him all up. He showed me his shins. He had all kinds of scars all over his shins. Now, granted, this story that he told me, he was telling me, happened when, I was significantly younger. I think I was probably, about 15 or so at the time. So there's a good chance that he could have just been pulling a fast one on me, talking about these goblins or little people of the mountains. And in reality, I would say more or less that he just got a little bit too heavy on quality control, which, fair enough, it's understandable. When you get a good run of corn liquor going or apple rye or whatever you're running, it's pretty easy to go a little bit heavy on the quality control. Now, y'all, I wanted to talk about the little people of the Appalachians just because I think it's an important part of our history. It's an important part of Native American history. If you look all across the United States and you look up the little people of Native American culture, they have a variation of the Yunwi Tsunsdi. Now, I might not be saying it right, and I apologize if I'm offending anybody by mispronouncing it, but I thought it was a absolutely fascinating story that has to deal with the paranormal that, I really enjoyed. I can only imagine my buddy JD just getting the crap beat out of him by a bunch of little people with these little sticks while he's drinking moonshine. It just kind of brightened my day, you know, thinking about it once I came across this area that, you know, where I'm at now. So, y'all, I am working really, really hard to create new, fun, interesting content for the channel. You know, I want my channel to be something that you all can come to every day, find something new and something interesting. You know, it might not always be hardcore paranormal stories, but in reality, I want to keep you all interested in the stuff that I'm doing in between me going out on these bigger expeditions and these investigations, looking for the bigger creatures. You know, obviously the Dogman, Bigfoot, the feral people are kind of my niche. That's where I've been able to find the most amount of evidence. So I tend to get kind of tunnel vision when I do something like this. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this story. A little bit more about the East Tennessee culture. You know, the stories that I heard growing up that made me fascinated in the paranormal. And I've got a lot of stuff heading your way very soon. I'm really stoked about this investigation that's coming up. So if you have not liked this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, make sure notifications are turned on, and until next time, see ya.